sort of like psychology. Like you, instead of going and paying money to your therapist, you go to your priest and just complain to him, and he absolves you and tells you it's going to be okay. He thought that confession was much more real than that. And I think it depends a lot on the spiritual father. I think it depends on who he is, and how he hears your confession. Alexander Schmemann would always, when you always came to him for confession, I heard, and even if it was private, you said, "Father, I'm having a problem," he'd stop you there. He'd say, "You don't have problems, you have sins." That was a big thing for Alexander Schmemann. It was a big thing for Father Alexander. Was that these aren't like psychological problems, these aren't foibles, these are sins. And there's this aspect, when you have public confession, that sin affects all of us. We all contribute to the fallenness of the world. And so that's one aspect of why confession used to be public, was that sin affects all of us. We all contribute to the fallenness of the world. We are all the reason why the world is so messed up and screwed up and full of problems. Well, I shouldn't say problems, I should say sins. And so that's why he thought that we should go back to this idea of public confession.
Well, because there really is no such thing as a private sin that only hurts yourself. Mm-hmm. Because we are communal. People need other people, and one's private sins affects the whole community, even if it's something secret or something that's not seen.
Well, and that was a big criticism of Father Alexander, was that we all share one chalice, but yet we don't confess publicly. Our confession is not communal.
This is a strong idea in the Brothers Karamazov with Father Sosima there. He says that your sin contaminates other people even if you don't know it. You are angry, and a child sees that you are angry, and the child assumes that being angry is a proper behavior, and this influences who that child becomes.
Right.
And so his idea was that who we are, even if you, as you said, it appears that it's only an internal thing that you've done to yourself, it changes who you are, and that affects everyone around you, even if no one could put their finger on the moment and say, this action by this person had this effect.
Right, this is when he went off the rocker.
It's also not just that you're wrong, but that you're not right. If you didn't have sin, you would be an inspiration in a way that we're not, because we do have sin.
Right. Do I advocate public confession? No. I think in a lot of parishes it would be dangerous and it would be poisonous, and I don't think that there are many Christians in parishes that are spiritually mature enough to do it. Because, I mean, when you confess to your priest, you're relying on the discretion of that priest and only one person. It really starts to confound things and complicate things when you're relying on the discretion of 134 people or 100 people or 50 people or even 3 people, even 2.
There are things I would not confess in public. Just wouldn't.
I was once told, and there are some things that people don't want known. I had a friend in seminary who told me that he wished that he could go to Mount Athos and confess, and confess to a monk everything, and then just shoot that monk in the head, and then just like, well, then you'd be committing murder.
Yeah, you wouldn't have gotten very far.
You just have to get that one sin.
So, I don't know, but I think that, again, and that goes back to what I was saying, that you need to go to someone that you really, really, really trust, that you know is not going to betray your confidence. And usually that is your parish priest. And if you don't trust your parish priest, then you probably need to talk to your bishop about that. Yes?
If you wanted to have a confessor other than your parish priest, would you need your parish priest's permission?
I would think that it's appropriate to talk to your parish priest about that. Because it's kind of like drinking from different wells. And I would ask, normally once you see someone for confession, and you've been seeing someone regularly, you should, and you want to confess with someone else regularly. You should talk to your current spiritual father and ask if that's okay. Just because it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it's a relationship like anything. I mean, even when you go and I don't mean to liken confession to therapy, but usually when you go and you see a therapist, and you want to go to another therapist, you usually either write a letter to the therapist that you were going to, or talk to them and say, I want to continue therapy with someone else. It's just, I think it's just a
I've known
thing.
at least one person who changed therapist every week, so.
Right.
He
then
was,
again, you
he
don't
was
wanna-
really in trouble.
Right. Okay, so preparation for confession. How do we prepare for confession? The best thing to do, and I'll be back. I'm back. The best thing to do is if you have one of these, and if you're Antiochian, get one of these. I think that the Archdiocese still publish these, except it's in a black cover. It's online now as well. You can do that. You get it online. But this is the little. It used to be called the Little Red Book. Then this is red, and I think some people they changed it to black. I think because there were some people thought it was like Mao's Little Red Book or something. I don't know. But anyway, this is a little pocket prayer book that's published by the Antiochian Archdiocese. There you go. You've got one too. A lot of other Orthodox prayer books have this. The best thing to do, and this is what I do when I go to confession, is in here there should be a little. Trying to figure out what page it's on. Examination. It's right here, page 39 of the Red Book. A self-examination. So you go through the 10 commandments. So the first commandment is what?
Love the
First commandment.
Love the Lord your God.
Love the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have other gods before me. So most of us, if I went to every single person in the parish and asked them if they broke the first commandment, most would say, I didn't break the first commandment. I'm a Christian. But
if you read this,
okay, have I believed in God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? Okay. Have I failed to trust in God and His mercy? Have I complained against God in adversity? Have I been thankful for God's blessings? Have I doubted the Christian faith and the teachings of the church? Have I tried to serve God and keep His commandments? Have I given way to superstition? Have I frequented the religious meetings of heretics and schismatics? Have I neglected my duties to God through fear of ridicule or persecution? Have I failed to pray to God faithfully? Have I put myself before God? So you kind of get the gist. So some of us, I'm one of them, when we're reading that, you're probably saying, I've probably broken the first commandment.
Yeah.
You know, same thing with sixth commandment. You know, thou shalt not kill. I haven't murdered anybody, but Have I caused the injury or death of anyone or wished that I were dead? Have I done anything to shorten my own life or that of someone else by injuring health or through evil and intemperate living? Have I given way to anger or harmed others with words or actions? Have I defamed others who needed help or failed to stand up to those unjustly treated? Have I been cruel to anyone? Have I mistreated animals or destroyed any life unnecessarily? Have I failed to forgive anyone or harbored evil, or have I harbored evil thoughts against them? Seventh commandment.
Love this little examination.
Thou shalt not commit adultery. We're supposed to, if we're married, we say, I haven't committed adultery, I haven't slept with anybody other than my spouse, but have I committed any unworthy actions alone or with others? Have I degraded myself in any way or forgotten human dignity? Have I read immoral books, magazines, things like that? So you kind of get the idea that you start going through those 10 commandments and you could probably easily find out, I've broken all 10. Sins in the Orthodox Church are very specific. We tend not break up sins into mortal or venial like Catholics do. Our sins are very, very specific, and again, it's I don't want to say personal, or tailored, but Satan knows where to hit us. There are going to be some people who deal with different types of sins, or the same sin. A lot of times when people come to me and they say, Father, I've been struggling with this particular type of sin, and they'll often confess the same thing over and over and over again.
Yep.
They'll feel bad about it, and I say, no, that's good. Because you're struggling against it, you know what the devil's trying to get at you. You know what he's using. So that's one aspect of it. Frequency. How often should you go to confession? Okay.
Let me back up a bit.
Yes.
Specificity.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that our confession should be a lot of specific actions and events, or would you say generally, this is a real example for me. I tend to be very angry at other people when I'm driving.
Mm-hmm.
Should I say that, or should I give specific examples?
Well, I think that out of humility, if it involves other people, it's probably best not to name those people.
Well, I wouldn't know their names, they're just other drivers.
Right, but in this case, could it just be maybe the stress of driving? Is the atmosphere? Or do you sin more when you're driving on, let's say, through a neighborhood, or is it on the freeway?
It's on the freeway.
That's probably where you should probably get into specifics.
Uh-huh.
I had always heard that when you're confessing, part of what you're doing is asking for grace for your particular sins, and that the more specific within a certain, within reason, the more specific you're able to be, you're specifically asking for these.
Uh-huh.
You're asking for particular graces, and that sometimes the more specific you can be in kind,
Mm-hmm.
the more grace you can receive in kind.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, you have to be somewhat specific. I mean, you can't just say,
I got angry.
yeah.
It's kind of like going to the doctor and saying, I hurt.
Right.
Okay, well, you hurt. Where? My body. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Where on your body? On my arm. Okay. All right. I always liked that whenever I did IT work. And people would call me up and say, I have a problem with my computer. Okay. That's good.
Did you turn it off? Did you turn it on?
That's me.
Did you turn it off? What did you do? Is it email? Is it your browser? What's going on with your computer? Get more specific. So I think the more specific, and I think that goes back to being comfortable with the priest.
Mm-hmm.
I find that if people are more comfortable, they're going to be more specific. So, that leads us to frequency, and this coincides with the relationship between confession and Holy Communion, because if you look at the Slavic tradition, the tradition is one for every communion you take, you need to go to confession. So at some Slavic churches, you'll often see people not going to communion. In fact, I went to one Russian church where the priest, he said, "Oh Lord, save thy people, bless thine inheritance," then assumed that no one was going to come to the chalice, and then went right back in with, with the fear of God, faith and love draw near, and then, "Oh God, save thy people, bless thine inheritance." It's like, where's communion? Well, because no one went to confession, he assumed that no one was going to take communion. The Greeks don't do that, and neither do Arabs. And normally it's the frequency of confession differs from parish to parish, from priest to priest. I always think that it's best to go to confession at minimum 4 times a year. One time during every one of the fast periods. So what are the fast periods? We just got done with one. Advent, Lent,
Apostles' Fast
in the early summer, and then the Dormition Fast in late summer. Those are good times for sacramental confession.
Now you say at minimum. What would you consider ideal?
Ideal would probably be going to confession every single day, but sometimes we can't.
I was gonna say every day.
I mean, monastics do that.
Yeah. That might be quite a burden on priests if the whole parish did that.
Callistus Ware recommended monthly. He thought that if you went too often, you would become overly scrupulous.
And I have seen that happen.
Become what?
Overly scrupulous.
I mean, it's
kind of paranoid of your own shadow.
paranoid of your own. I mean, Martin Luther did that when he was Catholic. He would go to confession and then get absolved and then come right back and confess the same exact thing a minute later, and not sure that he was forgiven of that sin. He wasn't assured of God's forgiveness. That was a big thing for Martin Luther.
Yeah, and you would get really picky. I took too large a helping of such and such.
Right, I ate that bread. Probably ate too much of it. But, yeah. Are there any questions? Any other questions?
Well, I asked Father Philip one time if I should, because I love confession, and I said I want to do it every week, and he said he didn't think that was a good idea. So you think that? Would you agree that that's too frequent?
No. I would start doing it just monthly. Then again.
Well, then the other thing is that sometimes I'll go for several months without a confession. I'm more sensitive sometimes than others, I guess.
I don't know. I think it depends on the person. Maybe it's something that we should talk, you and I, together about.
Okay, you can do that.
Any other questions?
So, when you confess to like a new priest, do you have to start from the very beginning of everything you can remember?
No. Well, everything that you've said to previous priests, I presume have already been forgiven. So what is said? So sins that had been, like for instance, on the 4th of July of 2005, I confess this. I don't need to know that.
I think my favorite part of confession is at the very end where the priest says, take no further thought of the sins you've committed.
Right.
Because that's an instruction an important one, that you don't obsess
Right.
over them,
And-
because they're gone.
And that's another thing about, I guess I should explain how confession is done, in the Orthodox Church. We don't do it in a booth. We don't do it behind a curtain. It's done face to face. The priest knows you and you know the priest. Resolved is the priest takes his stole and he puts it over your shoulders. What that represents is you getting your baptismal garment washed, bleached, and clean. You're getting it back. It also represents when the prodigal son. When the prodigal son came back to his dad, what did his dad do?
Give him his clothes, give him his book.
Took
Killed
off his
the fatted
cloak.
calf.
Well, he killed the fatted
Yeah.
calf, but he took off his cloak
Ah,
and wrapped it over. He took
yes.
off his own cloak and he gave it to his son. That's what the priest is doing. And then he absolves you with the prayer. And in that prayer, it also says, whatever you have confessed to my humble person, and whatever you confess to me, whatever you failed to confess, whether through ignorance or forgetfulness, whatever it may be, may God forgive you in this world and the world that is to come. So,
I think an important thing for Protestants to hear, having originally been one, is that it isn't the priest who does the forgiving.
no.
Because I think many Protestants think that the priests take that on themselves, that they do the forgiving.
Again, as it says in my prayer, at the beginning of the prayer that the priest reads over the penitent, in the Greek formula, it says, I, your spiritual father, I who am humble, have no power on this earth to forgive sins. That belongs to God alone.
So what is it that the priest does in absolving
The
you?
priest acknowledges the confession. He is there as an instrument of Christ to assure you of Christ's forgiveness. That is what the priest does.
I just think that's very important to underline, because when I was a Protestant, I did not understand that at all.
He is a physical manifestation of that assurance. That it's something that's real, it's in reality. It's not just something that's mental. I mean, again, it's because it's very physical. I mean, that stole being put over your shoulders,
Mhm.
feeling the weight of the priest's stole on your shoulders, and then it's lifted. It's like your sins, or someone had told me that it felt like a weight was coming off his back after I did that.
Mm-hmm. You said on the shoulders. It's been on my head usually.
Normally what I do is I take it on the shoulders and I put it on your head.
Uh-huh.
When
So
I
it
read-
starts
when I
on-
read
yeah,
the prayer. It starts on the shoulders.
Right. Well, I think that there is a way in which the forgiveness becomes so concrete in the act of confession and absolution that it has a level of reality that it otherwise does not have.
Right.
You get it. Yes, I can confess privately to God. I am assured of His forgiveness, but making it more concrete makes it more real, because I'm a physical human being.
And normally there's no, afterward I normally don't say, pray 10 Hail Marys, saying our Father, I don't do that. Sometimes though penance is given, when penance usually is given, it's usually asking you to refrain from communion. So normally if someone tells me that they're not sorry for something that they've done, I normally say, well, you can't take communion. Yes.
So I suppose that could happen. Someone could say, I did this, I know it's a sin,
Oh, I've had it
and
happen.
I'm not sorry.
I'm not sorry. Or
Why-
I did it because they deserved it.
Why confess it then?
Looking for validation.
Yeah.
But
Looking
wouldn't you do that at coffee hour?
Well, I guess you're asking the priest to say, well, that's fine, they did deserve it.
They did deserve it. You're a good person.
Uh-huh.
Go do it again.
Go do it again. Give him a good stiff kick. Just for me. You had a question, Lily?
Yes, and now I forgot what it was.
Okay.
It may come back to me.
They come back.
Yeah.
All right. Now I think we're done.
لأني لست أقول سرك لأعدائي ولا أعطيك قبلة غشة مثل